In today's video, I wanted to go back and take a look at Helldivers 2. Now, I looked at this game extensively when it launched about a month ago in a lot of my different hardware combinations. We also tested a bunch of CPUs. It was actually quite interesting. I did very much enjoy making those videos. My conclusion was, though, that Radeon GPUs were essentially a bit behind their NVIDIA counterparts. So the conversation around it was that either the developers are gonna update the game, or we were gonna wait on AMD to drop a driver update with optimizations to essentially catch up in performance to their NVIDIA counterparts. Well, 2 days ago, we got a new AMD driver update, 24.4.1. And if we take a look at the release notes, it lists performance improvements for Helldivers 2 as one of its highlights. So I wanted to go back and compare the previous driver to the new driver, see what type of improvements AMD is claiming here. On this video, we're going to take a look at a few different scenarios, but I would like to begin with the tutorial first. So let's take a look at the settings and then I'll explain why. We're targeting 4K for this one at native render scale, and for graphical settings, we've essentially maxed everything out. Now, the reason why I wanted to begin with the tutorial, or the reason why it's even in this video, is, well, for consistency. There's a lot of randomness and procedural generation that goes into the missions of Helldivers 2 that you can never get an exactly one-to-one comparison, and tutorial allows us to do that. Yes, the tutorial phase is not as demanding as, say, a difficult mission would be with a full group of players, but that's irrelevant here. We're comparing a like-for-like scenario, and this driver update actually offers significant performance improvement. What I did was I played through the tutorial of both drivers, and then at the very end I compared averages and 1% lows. And if we compare those differences, we have a 27% gain in average FPS and a 23% gain in 1% lows. That's actually very impressive, guys. You rarely see that type of a performance gain just from a driver update. It's been quite a while since we got a Radeon Driver update, it seems to me, and to be honest with you, I've kind of lost hope about Helldivers 2. I thought AMD was going to move on, but no, they gave us a pretty much and very welcome driver update for this game, because Helldivers 2 is a very popular game currently, and on my own comparison of the 7900 XTX versus 4090 video I did, I essentially had the 4090 was around 65% faster than the XTX, and normally the 4090 can be around 20 to 30% faster depending on the game. So I believe I did say in that video that I felt that Radeon GPUs were around 30% slower, 20 to 30% slower than they should be in this game, at least compared to all the other games. And this driver update, AMD seems to have closed that gap, which is very nice to see. But this is just the tutorial. I also did 3 different missions at 2 different resolutions, so why don't we take a look at those and see what the differences are. For the next 2 missions, I ended up dropping the render scale to ultra quality at 4K. So it's not native 4K, it's a little bit less, because I was getting around 60 FPS on the XTX and I wanted to get a little bit more. But this is an Eradicate Automaton Forces mission on challenging difficulty. And the idea is basically the same. I did the same mission on both drivers, and then at the end of the mission, I ended up comparing averages and 1% lows. And for this one, we actually seen pretty good gains as well. We had 23% gain on the average FPS on the new 24.4.1 driver, and 18% gain on the 1% lows. So it seems to be a little bit less than the tutorial, but again, just keep in mind that these missions can be quite different from one another, even though it's the same mission. You know, the rate at which enemies spawn, the type of party you have, a lot of things can vary. Another thing that I also wanted to point out is that if you look at both sides and the GPU clocks, they're a little bit different, although they're for the most part the same, but I did not end up overclocking the GPU. Everything is stock. I didn't want to touch that. I wanted to leave it alone and then just let the driver do its thing without any interference from me. But yeah, some pretty good gains here. Very welcome gains, absolutely, for Helldivers 2 on Radeon GPUs. Now I'm assuming this probably translates on the RX 6000 GPUs as well. I might take a look at that as well, but I'm pretty sure that this goes for all Radeon GPUs because they all were essentially underperforming. At least the ones I tested, the 7900 XTX and 6800 XT, prior to this driver update, were all basically performing around 20 to 30% less than they should have been when compared to their NVIDIA counterparts. But anyway, let's check out the next mission, which will also be 4K ultra quality. And then we'll take a look at another mission at 1440p native. For the next mission, we're still using the 4K with the ultra quality render scale, except that this is a destroy command bunkers mission, and it's on hard difficulty, so a little bit more difficult than the previous mission. Thus, it's a bit more chaotic. And here we've seen probably the biggest gains. We had a 29% faster on the averages for the new driver and 38% faster on the 1% lows for the new driver. Again, this is the random nature of this game and how the missions are generated, right? It can vary greatly. Even though you're on the same planet, same mission, same difficulty, same amount of people in your party, it can vary. Speaking of which, I was actually extremely rusty because I haven't played Helldivers 2 since it came out. I was pretty into it, but then other games came out that I want to take a look at. And I'm not really a big multiplayer gamer, actually. I mostly prefer single-player games, although I do like co-op. Just goes to show how good Helldivers 2 is that I ended up spending quite a bit of time playing it and even talking on the comms. So it's a very good game, and I actually very much enjoyed my time trying to make this video, except that I was a bit rusty and getting destroyed. But anyway, this was a very fun mission. On the new driver, I had a pretty good team. We actually did pretty well. But yeah, you can see the gap widening now, even though it's the same mission. But why don't we take a look at 1440p next? This will be a different type of mission, but it'll be 1440p native. And yeah. Like I said, the next mission will be 1440p native, and for graphics, we've kept everything maxed out. And this one is a blitz, search, and destroy on challenging difficulty. In this part of the video, the gap between the two drivers has actually shrunk. And the main reason for this is that we appear to be hitting some CPU limitations every now and then, which kind of makes sense because this game is quite CPU heavy. However, we still have a 19% lead on the averages and 17% lead on the 1% lows. Speaking of CPU limitations though, on my previous Helldivers 2 videos, especially the ones where I tested a bunch of Ryzen CPUs, people were saying that I should test very high or maxed out difficulty missions because that's when the performance gets even worse because it gets extremely chaotic. And I believe it. I think the hardest I've tried was the hard difficulty, which I believe is number 5. And that was earlier today, and it was extremely chaotic. I think I would have to level up a bit more and get back into the game and before I can attempt to do something that's that difficult. I don't want to end up being someone that the party has to carry, or even worse, get kicked out. But I mean, the game can get very chaotic on even the easier like hard difficulty. On the old driver, that mission was insane. There was all these drop ships surrounded us and they were firing at us and we just kept dying. So I don't know, it seems like you have to work as a team obviously in this game, but on higher difficulties it seems like you would probably want to be in a team with people you know and sort of do a loadout that complements each other, which makes sense. But I do want to check that. I am curious about it, so I might check it out. When? I don't know. But still, the way I tested in this video does do a pretty good job of testing the performance improvements that we got with the new Radeon Driver, which I would say it's between 25 to 30%, absolutely. And that was pretty much what was needed for Radeon GPUs to catch up with the NVIDIA ones. So it took about a month or two for this to happen, but it did happen. And that's what's important because the game is very popular and it's nice to see that Radeon is on par with NVIDIA in this game. So yeah, that was my testing of the new drivers. What did you guys think? Let me know down below. Like the video if you liked it, and consider subscribing for more similar content. And I appreciate you watching. I hope you all have a great rest of the weekend. And I'm going to be diving into Manor Lords and see how that game is. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.